Hey friends, today we're doing something a little bit different. A little bit of house water diagnostics. Now if you watch this pressure here, maybe I'll switch it over here. You watch that pressure. See how it surges in and out? Surging in and out. That's not normal. Now typically you might notice that accompanied with a flickering of your lights. This only applies to home systems, of course. Systems with your own, when you've got your own well, your own pressure tank, or at least your own pump and pressure tank. And of course, if you got your own pump, you need a pressure tank somewhere in the system. That's the issue here. Because what's happening is that pump is surging in and out, perpetually, non-stop surging in and out. It is freaking cold outside, but that's okay. I'm gonna make this video quick. So what's happening is that pump, and I'll get to that, that pump is surging in and out because that pressure tank is broken, and I'll show you that here in a second. Just gotta grab my little tool and put my jacket on. Now that I'm geared up, I'm gonna head out here. We're going over here to this cover. Now under this cover, we've got, it's actually warming up, it's almost starting to melt now. We've got our whole setup in here. Now I'm gonna climb down in there, but before I do that, I'm going to show you. Like I said, it's surging in and out, and the reason it's surging in and out is because this pressure tank here is no good. They've got a bladder inside, like an inner tube in a bicycle tire. You hear that? And what happens is it'll kick in and out, in and out, in and out. Typically, this is supposed to absorb the pressure, and it's not anymore, because it's ruptured. You're supposed to have, 15 psi or whatever in here, and then it fills up the tank and kicks out, and then the pressure goes down. Once the pressure drops too low, you got your gauge down there. I don't know how well we can see it from here, right under there. And once the pressure drops too low, then it kicks the pump on again. But, and you could hear it, she's using water in the house again. Click, 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 click. If you watch the pressure on the gauge down there, you'd see it go up and down, up and down. Let's get down in here. Or actually, I'm gonna pull out my pliers real quick. I'm gonna show you. Here's a good way to diagnose. This should have air in it, not water. No water, but as you can see, water's coming out, which tells you that your bladder in there is ruptured, typically because of rust, or could be other things that cause it. Once that's ruptured, this whole pressure tank, pointless. It's no good. So now what we got to do, we got to change this pressure tank. But what can also happen is if you find, you'll, like I said, you'll see your lights flickering because the pump's kicking in and out, in and out, in and out, and you can't really tell because the pump is way down in the ground. So how are you going to hear that? You might hear a little bit of a humming down here or whatever. But this pressure switch, in and out, in and out, in and out. And what can happen as well is if you all of a sudden, you find you have that issue for a while, it's kicking in and out, but now all of a sudden it's not kicking in and out and your pressure is abnormally high, watch that switch. Your switch can actually weld to the contacts. See that? Surges in, kicks out. See the pressure in the background. Every time you use water, it's got nowhere to go. Only pressure it can maintain is in the lines. And those contacts can actually weld together over time, which is what happened to this side. I just disassembled that, moved the wires over to the other side. I guess it's a double pressure switch. You can run two wires, two lines off of it, two different pumps, whatever. But yeah, that pressure you can actually adjust as well. But I'll leave that for a different video. Go online, you can find ways. This here is to increase and decrease your pressure. This here, I believe, is to adjust the spread. So that's how that works. If you want to increase your pressure, you would tighten that up. You would tighten up that one, and if you want to decrease it, you would loosen it. And pressure typically you want in a house probably right around 40 psi. So you might make your spread 20-50. Typically it's about a 20 psi spread. You might go 30-50, I mean, or you might go 40-60. Doesn't really matter, but that's kind of where you want it to be. Typically they're set factory to where the spread, which is that nut there, is going to be about 20 psi. So anyway, now what happened is those contacts welded together, and now that pump was running, cranking all the way to 90 psi and staying there. So I had to come down here, separate those contacts, flip my main switch. You don't want to get zapped. These are obviously hot wires in here. There's a hot wire there, so you don't want to touch those. With the power on, obviously, so I disconnected the power with this main switch here, and like I said, I swapped them over to the other contact, made sure the switch was working well, and we're good to go. You know, cut the power here, and now she's got no water, but at least I can demonstrate. Click, and it builds up pressure. You got a little line under there. Once it reaches a certain pressure, it pops it up, and that's what all that mechanism is. I don't need to go into the details. I'm making this video too long as it is already. But anyway, again, if you got flashing, surging, your pressure tank's probably no good. Pop your cap off and just give it a quick little push up here with a little screwdriver or a toothpick or whatever. And if you got water coming out there, your pressure tank is bad. And then check your switch. If all of a sudden your pump, if you've got just way higher water pressure than you should, it's not likely going to happen if your pressure tank is good, because this is going click, 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 as I've demonstrated here, as you've observed. But if that's been happening, or even if not, if all of a sudden your pressure's too high, that switch right there might be bad. So you pull that off, it's covered, right? You got it covered typically, and it's going to be, you know, you'll have it tied up or whatever. See, somebody's using water again. Take that off and you check that. If your contacts in there are bad, again, shut off the power first. But if your contacts in there are bad, if they're welded together, you got to separate that. Or maybe you need a new pressure switch. I suppose it could happen even with the tank being good. But anyway, a little more rambling than I need to do. I apologize for that. But that gives you an idea. And you can kind of observe all that. Gives you some basic diagnostics. You got flashing, surging water. Probably your pressure tank. If your pressure is just stupid high all of a sudden, that switch. And like I said, bad pressure tank will usually cause that, because that switch has got to do 100 times the work that it normally would. Hey folks, there you have it. Sorry for all the rambling again, but hope this video helps somebody, and as always, may God bless you.